We want to get to the pro-Palestinian protesters at Columbia University who broke into a campus building overnight. They smashed windows and barricaded doors, and they're now saying they will not leave Hamilton Hall until all of their demands are met. The clashes have spread to campuses across the country, as we've been watching. At UCLA, police in tactical gear intervened as protesters clashed with pro-Israel demonstrators. At the University of Texas, Austin, state troopers in riot gear detained some students as others surrounded the police, who say they used pepper spray to get them to disperse. Joining me now from Columbia, the flashpoint in all of this is New York City is NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton. So they're inside Hamilton Hall. Hamilton Hall has a history of being occupied over going back basically 100 years. What are they demanding, and what is Columbia University saying?
Hey, Katie. Well, the dozens of students who are inside this building behind me here are demanding that the university divest from Israel and that they essentially come back to the table and meet some of the students' demands. We had heard yesterday from the school administration that that conversation had fallen apart, that they were at an impasse, and the school had given them this 2 p.m. deadline. Well, I can tell you our team was here late into the night, past that 2 p.m. deadline, very clearly seeing that the encampment and the protests were still active. And you could get this feeling as 7 p.m., as 8 p.m. came along, that there was this eerie feeling that something was about to escalate, whether that was the NYPD was going to enter campus overnight after press no longer had access, or students and faculty wondering if the protesters were going to change strategy in some way. And now it's very clear what the answer was. They are in this building, and they say they are going to stay barricaded with these metal gates, with furniture and zip ties that they used last night to lock themselves in there, essentially, that they're going to stay there until the university meets them on their demands. We have not heard much today from the university, except for the fact that safety to them is paramount, that they've locked down this campus. So even faculty and students who normally have access to all these spaces, they can't even get in there, Katie. That is the state of play here at Columbia.
Antonia, when you're watching this all unfold, we also saw yesterday that after some time, the university followed through with the suspension of students who stayed on the lawn. What do we know about that this morning?
We know that there are students that have faced suspensions. We don't have the exact numbers. We don't have their names, which is typical. Columbia doesn't normally disclose much about their disciplinary procedures. And we know that there were some students that our team witnessed this morning trying to swipe into campus who said they normally have access who couldn't get in.
Interesting. Antonia Hilton. Antonia, thank you very much. And joining me now, Republican Congressman Anthony D'Esposito of New York. He was at Columbia University twice last week, including once with House Speaker Mike Johnson. Congressman, thank you very much for being here. I know you have very strong feelings about what you're witnessing.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I think that what we've seen here now is what some have said have been peaceful protests have been hijacked by those aggressive, spewing anti-Semitic and anti-Israel and at some fronts anti-American rhetoric.
What about the right of students to protest, to call out injustice as they see it, and to say, frankly, with free speech, even offensive things?
I've said all along that these students are protected by our Constitution. It's one of the beautiful things about being a citizen of the United States of America and living here. But when you are causing others harm, when you are putting others in fear, when you are taking away students' ability to learn and be educated, that their parents or guardians or whoever's paying for their education is paying well over $90,000 for, and now we have students who can't come on campus. We have those who are told, we can't keep you safe. You're going to have to learn from home. I think what we're seeing here is, again, it's these aggressive individuals that have taken over the right to protest. This is no longer peaceful protest. These are people that are aggressive, that are spewing hate, and that want to see these educational institutions continue to be these petri dishes for hate.
What do you think Columbia University should do?
I think Columbia University shouldn't be suspending anyone. They should be expelling those who violate protocols and policies of the school. And I think that the leadership, or I should say the lack of leadership that we've seen from Columbia, needs to grow a backbone, needs to grow a spine, and do the job that they're supposed to do. When you can't keep students safe, there's a problem. When you are trying to rationalize with irrational people, you're negotiating with people who are praising terrorist organizations. Something needs to stop. stop here, and they need to show some leadership, and they need to do it quickly.
Are you worried about violent confrontations with the police or the National Guard?
I think we should always be worried about violent confrontations with the police and National Guard. I mean, the video that you just saw before we started this segment, I guess that was overnight, of breaking windows and using zip ties and holding members of staff against their will in hallways. I mean, these are violent protesters who no longer are being peaceful, but they're being aggressive, and they are making and leaving people in fear.
There are a number of protests around the country. There's obviously what we're witnessing at Columbia University, and the protest demands, the chants, the desires run the gamut. What about those who are saying that they want a ceasefire, they want an end to the Israeli bombing in Gaza, they want an end to the bloodshed? What do you say to them?
All that needs to happen there is Hamas needs to surrender, and every one of those that are the hostages should be released. That's the starting point.
What about the offer that's on the table?
What we need is Hamas to surrender, and we need all hostages to be released. That's what we should be focused on right now. The individuals that are going around to educational institutions around this country are claiming that they want peace, that they're doing it for humanitarian reasons. They must have missed the October 7th attacks where Hamas came into Israel and butchered and murdered and raped and pillaged.
Let me ask you about something a little bit closer to home. Speaker Mike Johnson, Marjorie Taylor Greene is again making noise about her motion to vacate. If that comes up, what do you believe will happen?
I think that Speaker Johnson is doing a great job leading not only our conference, but leading the House of Representatives. It is a tough job. I would argue probably the most difficult job in the country right now. But he's doing it with grace. He's doing it with courage. We saw last Saturday where he brought people from different sides of the aisle, from all across this great nation, to come together to support our allies, to do the work that the American people are hoping for us to do. And I think that he'll continue in that.
Will you still support him if Democrats vote to keep him in the speakership?
I will support Mike Johnson for as long as he wants to be Speaker of the House.
Congressman D'Esposito, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.